Hey, welcome you all to the Hustle Faithfully podcast, where determination meets devotion.
Find us on all major streaming platforms at www.hustlefaithfully.com. We're having an interesting subject today of hypnosis and the church. Ricardo, is hypnosis used in the church?
Is hypnosis used in the church? I guess it would determine what you see as hypnosis. I mean, if we're talking about someone teaching something or saying something or sharing something that causes you to change your mindset and to live differently, then yes. If it's hypnosis in the sense that most people that don't know hypnosis or have a limited understanding of hypnosis, things of hypnosis, as far as somebody controlling your mind, where there is a lack of free will, there's this dangling pendulum in front of your face and so forth, then no.
Okay. What is your definition of hypnosis?
Mm-hmm. My initial statement to that would be the second one was my early on understanding of hypnosis.
Okay.
Now, at this point, the thing I think of hypnosis is more about mind control more than anything else.
Okay.
That's my present understanding of it.
Very cool. Hypnosis is not really mind control.
Mm-hmm.
Hypnosis is language patterns.
Mm-hmm.
I'm coming from this I have 3 trainers in hypnosis.
Mm-hmm.
2 of them have had Las Vegas stage shows, and they also do hypnosis off the stage. Neither one of them are still stage performers at this time. And the other person is, I know he trained one of them. I wouldn't be shocked if he trained the other one as well.
Mm-hmm.
So the people that I deal with are not just people, down on Fremont Street in Las Vegas saying they are a hypnotist and they're wanting to get their feet wet with it.
Right.
The people that I'm learning from are tried and true and proven in the field.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say learning from, this has been many, many, many years in the making.
Mm-hmm.
I don't talk about it very much to very many people.
Right.
Because it is a dicey term in the church for the exact reasons you just said.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I love about you is the fact that you are open enough to say, you know what, this is what I believe right now. And you even said that my present, the way I see it presently, which means it can change. And I'm not here to persuade you one way or another.
Right.
I'm just here to throw light on this topic of hypnosis in the church. And one of the beauties to it is I do have a deeper understanding of the language patterns and the trance patterns and things of that nature than what a lot of people do.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Anytime I hear trance,
yes,
or I hear people talk about being able to tell someone to do something that they otherwise wouldn't have done, like bark like a dog and so forth, that instantly says mind control.
Okay.
I mean, instantly, because if I can't control what I'm doing because you're telling me to do this, then for me, that's the very definition of mental puppeteering.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the issue that I personally would have with anything where someone could actually get me to do something that I personally am not choosing to do. It's like taking a drug where the drug influences you to do something where you literally don't feel like you have any control at all. I think that's the question that some that don't know anything about hypnosis and have seen or heard, that's the issue that many will probably have. Okay. So that portion of it, is there a way of doing hypnosis, and that's called hypnosis, where mind control is actually the practical application of hypnosis is controlling someone's mind?
Absolutely.
Okay.
This, with everything else, can be used for good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
You are able to pull yourself out of a trance.
Mm-hmm.
When let's say, as an example, well, I'll back up. When I met my initial trainer, I saw him do a stage show
Right.
the night before he was on stage the following day, pushing his materials and things. That stage show was incredible. I had never experienced a stage hypnosis show before in my life. I vividly remember one of the things that he had 3 or 4 of the guys do, and there may have been some ladies as well. They had to go back to the door and greet people in their language. And he told them what the language was. You know, of course it was made up. It was fictitious. And he told them, you know, your dialect is ooga blooga blooga blah blah, you know, that type of thing. Now, when they were doing it, were they paid actors? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There was complete and utter mind control there. Now, here's the thing. You are able to pull yourself out of that. No question about it. That is one of the things, like when I induce trance, and that is a scary word to a lot of people. I understand that. When I induce hypnosis, it can also be said as meditation. I mean, they're all the same thing. They are all the same thing. You are able to pull yourself out of it. When I first started going to the gentleman that I first started learning from, I met him 17 years ago for the first time. I was with him personally a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. I've been to his personal homes and, you know, I know his family. It's intriguing to see how all this stuff works behind the scenes. When I went to some of his programs, he has a trance session every day, and you actually lay down on the floor. They dim the lights, you know, play some background music, all types of stuff. Very much like what's done in the church during prayer time, during altar call. It really is. Dim the lights, play a soothing song. Yet I never would allow myself to quote unquote go under. And understand, I will use a lot of the terms that people that are not familiar with hypnosis understand. Go under, trance, things of those natures. Because I'm not trying to be secretive with anything we're talking about here. I would not allow myself to go under or become induced because I knew that during that roughly 45-minute to 1 hour spot, he was going to be feeding things into my mind. And I'm very cautious of that. So I wanted to hear, okay, what is being said? So I just stayed there and I listened to everything. And even the test, I didn't give in to them simply because I would not allow myself to, because I wanted to hear what was being said. Now, there is one point in that stretch where he has everybody laughing at the funniest thing that they can ever remember and things of that nature. And again, it's all language patterns. How can he have a room of 50 people or 5,000 people and almost everybody's laughing? Well, part of it is the fact that you get a few people laughing and then this person hears the next person laughing and it makes them laugh. And then all of a sudden everybody's laughing. So again, it's all language pattern. It's all techniques. It's all things of that nature. Was there complete mind control and manipulation in that thing where he had the people talking in this language that doesn't even exist? Without a doubt. There's also something called body catalepsy. Are you familiar with that?
I heard, but don't know much about it.
There's multiple forms of body catalepsy. I did one of them to my youngest daughter. We were standing in a checkout line at a grocery store. And I did it to her, and I just walked off, and she was still standing there frozen. And I asked her, I said, Emma, why is your arm just dangling in the air? At that point, she realized that she had just been standing there with her hand in the air for, I don't even remember how long it was. Was there taking control of her mind there? No, it wasn't. It was telling your mind, your muscles what to do. You can do that to yourself. I induce trance on myself, hypnosis on myself every single night that I have a challenge going to sleep. After I induce the sleep hypnosis on myself, I am physically asleep, not just in hypnosis, not just in trance. I am asleep for the night within typically seconds.
Mm-hmm.
If it takes 2 minutes for me to fall asleep, I'm utterly disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you can pull yourself out of it at any point. Could those guys standing at the back of the room greeting people as they left in this mystic language come back to reality and started talking in plain English? Absolutely, they could have. So why don't they? Well, primarily because you're having fun in the situation. You're relaxed. That's the big thing, is your mind is relaxed.
My thing with all of this is I don't want to be so relaxed in a moment where someone has the ability to, especially something like that. You heard me talk about the spiritual side of things.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I'll never walk away from because it's too real to ignore it. Anytime, like you said, you could pull yourself out. So that means I'm in something where, unless I pull myself out, there is a measure of control by someone else. And I'm saying things in that moment that I ain't got a clue what I'm saying. All I know, I could be reciting or chanting a doggone spell or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know. Obviously, you got to trust the people that you're around, no matter what
Sure.
you're doing. But when you walk into a conference and you don't know this person, they just telling you to do so and so or chant so and so. You don't know what it means or what it is. But I personally, I don't want to be in a position where I have to pull myself out of anything unless I chose to be in it or to be doing it, myself. And I'm not talking about choosing to be at the conference. I'm talking about someone saying, do this, and you're doing something and not knowing you're doing it. Or in a situation where you're talking about someone's body being frozen. It sounds too much like sleep paralysis. And if you haven't done a lot of study on spiritual attacks, that sounds too much like that to me. When you're talking about my body not being able to move because of what somebody else did, that sounds too much like that type of spiritual attack or sleep paralysis to me, for me to be okay with doing that.
Have you ever found yourself doing something and saying, how did I get here? How did I physically get here to this point?
Yeah, when I was drinking or smoking.
But since you've been sober and not under the spell of drugs or alcohol, you haven't had that happen to you.
When I'm driving and I'm focused on something else and I'm on autopilot because I know where I'm going, and I get there and I ask myself, how did I get here? Because I'm familiar with where I'm going, and I'm thinking about something else. But I'm so used to driving in this direction that I make the turns without thought. I know where I live.
That, my friend, is trance.
Well, I mean, I don't see
in its most pure form. That is trance.
I think we can play word salad. We can do verbal gymnastics in a situation like that. But I don't see it as a trance as much as it is your subconscious mind stores things, information, without it being good or bad.
Bingo.
It's not, but see, that's not a trance. That's like, if I got like a computer, is a computer in a trance because it has information stored in it and it's as instant recall?
But a computer is not a human mind.
Well, that's just it. It's not about whether it's human or not. Information stored in the subconscious mind isn't necessarily has anything to do with whether it's human or not, because I'm not conscious of what I'm storing. It's stored. It just happens. The computer doesn't have a conscience where it's necessarily conscious of what it's storing. It's there for recall. So my subconscious mind, like the computer, doesn't have to be something that I consciously access. It's just there until it's recalled. So it's the same thing. It doesn't matter whether it's human or computer. It's just a place of storage. So in a moment where that thing has to happen, or it's necessary for that to happen, or the information to be utilized, it's there so that it can be recalled, so that in a moment it can be utilized for whatever it's been stored for.
Have you ever bought something and had buyer's remorse? And buyer's remorse being you buy it and then a day, 3 days, a week later, you say, why in the world did I buy this? I didn't even need it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
My friend, that's trance. Okay.
That's one of those where we're not gonna agree, don't you?
That's okay.
Yeah, because that for me, that's where you go into a situation where I personally have walked in thinking I wanted something, and I've been intent on getting it, and I've gotten something like, this is not quite what I thought it was, because in my mind it was going to be something different, and I got it and realized it's not what I thought it was going to be. Why? Because I've never actually had it. The idea of it was greater than the reality of it.
Mm-hmm.
So now I have buyer's remorse because the reality of this thing is not quite what my mind had told me it was.
Okay, so let's turn this back around to the church,
Mm-hmm.
like the subject is. You have a dynamic preacher. You have an altar call, and so many people come down. Is your argument that there was no subconscious programming done in that sermon for them to come down?
There is no argument. It's just simply stated that anytime someone is in a place where you're already walking into a place where you may feel shame about something, or you may feel guilty about something that you've done, but it hasn't been called out. And then in a situation where someone calls out certain things where it heightens that sense of shame and guilt, but they give you a way out, then you may run down there. Why? Because you don't want to carry that thing that you carry. And in some senses, there's people that can use spiritual manipulation to get you to respond in a way that maybe they want you to respond in a situation like that. And does that happen? Yeah, there's all kinds of things that happen. Whether it's right or wrong is up to the determination of the person, whether that's something that they wanted to do and they walked in with the idea to do that, or whether they manipulated into doing it.
Turn up the pain, offer the pleasure. Is exactly what you just explained. You come in, the person comes in with shame, the person comes in with guilt, the person comes in with remorse, and the pastor speaks on something and it burns it within them.
Mm-hmm.
It pulls out that shame, that remorse, that guilt for whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost as though I'm sitting here in a church of 12 people. I'm sitting here in a church of 12,000 people. Doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter.
Mm-hmm.
How does he know? How is he talking to me?
Mm-hmm.
But yet, come the end of the service, it's not just you that was touched. It's so many other people. Now,
Right.
Of course, we know one thing is you talk baseline. You don't get in depth, of
Mm-hmm.
course, because more people can relate. However, you referred to it as word salad earlier.
Mm-hmm.
The words are so important.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you can have a preacher that never grows beyond 75 people in the church,
Mm-hmm.
and a church that's tens of thousands of people and it continues to grow. Why?
Yeah.
Well, part of it is word manipulation. I mean,
And
that may be a harsh word to use, but that's what it is, word manipulation.
it's not harsh. It's the reality of mankind. That's, I mean, in general, people will say things that benefit them. They say things to get people to do things that benefit them. But at the end of the day, that's not the church. That's the people that sometimes use the word within the church that manipulates people. The church as a whole, the one that Christ died for, that's not the church. That's not even the gospel that he preached. That's not it. Pastors that represent him can use what he said and manipulate people in a way that benefits them. And then thus they do things that the pastor wants them to do in order to get the outcome or the desired outcome that the pastor desires. Now, does that mean that because the church has all this notoriety, or it has all this fanfare, has all these members, that they are in fact doing the things in the way that Christ said they should do? Nope. The size of the church does not necessarily represent the size of the God in the church. You know, it doesn't. They're not always hand in hand. So I would not tie the church down to a certain way of doing things because people in the church have done things a certain way in the areas where we've attended church. That I wouldn't do.
Okay. Is it improper to let's say you want to start a church?
Mm-hmm.
You've had training in hypnosis.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's talking to the subconscious mind,
right.
bypassing the conscious, talking to the subconscious. You've had immense training in hypnosis.
Right.
You decide to start a church. You feel called to start a church, whatever phrases you want to use. You start a church. Do you forego everything that you learned in hypnosis because it's crossing the two together?
If you have been called to start a church versus just wanting to, yeah. If you have been called, which means God has graced you for this, God has called you to this, that means he's giving you something that he desires to utilize in order to shepherd a group of people, to lead or teach a group of people. Then you move according to what he said and what he's given you and how he said to do it over anything that's been taught in a secular space. That should not be how you don't do the things of God or the things that are sacred using solely secular techniques. You use what God has said to use and whatever tools he's giving you to use them so that the desired effect or the outcome that he desires, not you, that he desires to take place in this place that he's assigned you, you use that. And if that means foregoing everything else that you've had prior to that, that could muddy the water, so to speak, you forego it.
Okay. So you have an altar call at the end of the service.
Mm-hmm.
People coming down, getting saved, accepting Christ. Say you have a church of some size, a couple hundred people, a couple thousand people, but all in one area.
Right.
Now, would you agree with me from our time in church that there's a lot more people that would walk down except for the embarrassment of, oh my God, what is this person thinking?
Absolutely.
Okay. So you as a pastor have some people in the church, not leaders, not elders, not anything like that. Some people in the church, and you or your team go over to them and say, hey, Susan, hey, Jeffrey, come here. I need y'all. Timothy, come here. I need you. Look, we're going to have an altar call at the end of the service. I need you to walk down so that people can see you walk. It gets other people saying, well, they're doing it. I can do it too. Right or wrong?
Choice. I can't say it's right or wrong. That's what they choose to do. I mean, is that wrong for them to do that? To give other people, like they'll say, hey, if you don't want to come by yourself, have somebody else come with you. It's essentially the same thing. Is it something I would do? It's not something I would do, but does it make it wrong somebody else does it? I can't say it's wrong for someone else to do it.
Is it deceptive?
Is it deceptive in the sense that the people that are coming down are not coming down to get saved? If you want to say that's deceptive, you can say it's deceptive. But if the people are coming down, are not saying they're coming down to get saved, they're just coming down. They didn't get up and say they were coming down to get saved. They're just coming down. And if other people are seeing that and perceive that to be people that are coming down, or take that as meaning they're coming down to get saved, so they're going to come too, then I mean, hey, if that's the choice that's made, that's what people want to do, then that's on them. But at the end of the day, each person has to be held to account for what they choose to do and why they choose to do it. Why are you doing this? You have to answer for that. I personally wouldn't do it because I got to be held accountable for why I was doing that, and so I would not choose to do that because my convictions won't allow me to do it that way.
Why?
Because that's my conviction. That's the way. That's how I'm convicted. We're all convicted according to how we believe in different ways. My convictions may not be the next person's convictions, and the answer to why is because it's my conviction.
Okay, great question. Or great topic. Your convictions may not be somebody else's convictions, but if we serve one God who has one set of rules, why would everybody not be convicted of the same?
It's not a rule. That's not my convictions that's not a rule. Christ is Lord and Savior, and him being the only way in, that's absolute. You being an evangelist and me being a pastor, our roles are differently, so we may be led differently for the same purpose. The same purpose that we have is to glorify Christ and to make him known and to present the gospel to other people. But the way we go about it and the things that we're able to do because of what we're assigned or how we're called may cause us to have different convictions in certain areas. Like, I'll draw a line in the sand here, but that's not your line. Why? Because that's not your call. So that doesn't really matter to you because it's not a salvific issue. That's not going to send you to hell. There are certain things that you can't cross the line on because this is a salvific topic where that thing could cause you to actually be heading to hell rather than heaven. So there are things within my walk where I may have a conviction. There are Christian liberties that we have where some people it's okay to have a sip of wine. For others, it's not. Why? Because I may be convicted differently on that. Don't do anything that could be perceived or seen as evil in the eyes of other people, or cause someone else to sin, or cause someone else to stumble. Well, I wouldn't do that if someone else around me has a drinking issue, because it may cause them to stumble. And I also may have a conviction that says, if this is something that could lead me to be in a place of drunkenness, then I shouldn't do that. But maybe I wouldn't get drunk. Someone may have a conviction that they won't get drunk, so they'll do it. So my convictions may be different. That don't mean you're going to hell because yours are not like mine. Okay. So just same God, but maybe our convictions are a little differently.
All right. So the process of leading, which was what we were talking about earlier, having other people come down just to really get it started. You say that's not a situation where it's inherently right or wrong. It just depends on that pastor, that evangelist, that whatever's convictions.
Yeah, because it's Christ that calls people to him. The pastor could preach all day, but if he don't call you to him, unless you're under this manipulation thing where you feel like you're being manipulated to come down. That's why I personally, I'd offer people an opportunity to know Christ, but I don't necessarily call people down after a sermon, because I'm not preaching a sermon or wouldn't be sharing a sermon that's supposed to make people feel bad about being imperfect or having been born in sin, which is a choice they didn't make. My job is not to convict someone of wrongdoing. It's to offer them a life of right living in Christ and what that looks like. That's the difference between someone saying, I can't do this as a Christian, and someone says, I get to do this as one.
Okay. So breaking this down, hypnosis in the church. And we haven't gone as far in depth about what hypnosis is as what I'd really like to. Time is of the essence. I mean, that would take multiple, probably 4 or 5 episodes for us to really dive into it. Language patterns. The way you use your language will make people move. I don't care what kind of move you're talking about. I don't care if it's get up and come down to the altar. I don't care if it's an arm body catalepsy, and that can go way more in depth. I have seen one of my trainers actually put a very petite woman in between 2 chairs, nothing else under her. One's under her neck, one's under the crease in her knees, and stand on her midsection and her body doesn't bend, and almost double her weight. Body catalepsy. Your muscles are stiff. Your muscles are rigid. Yet it can be used for such good. I left off the part earlier when I said that I would not allow myself to go into trance because I wanted to hear what this man was pouring into my life and the lives and the heads of everybody that was around. Now, I've been to that same program multiple times, and so I've heard it. It's all positivity. It's all encouraging you, telling you how you're amazing and wonderful. And, it's just all positivity. So with that being said, and hypnosis is just like anything else in this world. It can be good. It can be bad. It can be used for the good, and it can be used for the bad. Let me say that. What's your take on it? I know we kind of started this conversation with that, but what's your take on it again with apparently you feel that it is not okay to mix it in the church. And I am of the firm and utter belief that it's mixed in every single church, whether they know they're doing it or not. It's mixed in every single church. There are some that are just really good with it and some that just suck.
Well, and that's why the Bible says that you should study yourself to show yourself approved, so that you would know what's happening around you. There's an awareness of what's going on around you, so you don't fall victim to certain things that are going on within the church. That's what I believe in. That's why I keep running back to and referencing the Bible, because it's not the man that I'm concerned with. It's about this word, this written word, this spoken word, Christ himself, that has given us a template to live by. That's what's more important to me than how someone is or isn't doing something within the framework of what we see as the church. because the building that we walk into and the pastors that we go in and we choose to sit under isn't necessarily the representation of Christ that I need to see in order to stay committed or stay submitted. The representation that I need to see is the one that Christ himself lived, because any other man outside of that is imperfect and thus can fail me. So that's not my standard of living or my standard of choosing what I do and what I don't do. So when people choose to do the things they do in the church that may or may not manipulate people, I can see it and say, I don't agree with that. But at the end of the day, it's not my standard anyway. What's in his word is my standard. So if I know that, and I've done what the Bible says to study myself, so I know what's true, what is the true perfect will of God. So I'm not conformed to the ways of the world, but I'm conformed to his word. Then those things don't affect me in the same way. So I won't respond the same way. I won't see them the same way. And thus I won't move or live my life in the same exact way. So that's that. So when it comes down to stuff like that, I personally would not mix what were we talking about? Hypnosis and whatever in the church, and how someone perceives it is their choice. I just know from me studying myself, it's not what I want to do personally, based on what I know about it. I know enough about the word and not enough about it to know that I'd rather trust in what I know that's absolute than something that I'm unsure of when it comes to the reality of it from A to Z. I know what the Bible says, that I'm not certain. So I refuse to open myself up in a way that might invite something in to my life that I don't want to contend with, which is the spiritual aspect of it.
How much of that is fear mongering from the church of not mixing something quote unquote of the world and the church?
For me, it's not. For me personally, it's not fear mongering. It's wisdom to not mix the profane with the sacred. To me, it's wise to not do that, to not walk around with dolls poking cushions in them, and then I can find scriptures that may make that seem okay to do. But is it wise to do so? Probably not. It's one of those things where you heard me talk about I can do something, but should I? It's that same thing when it comes to my life means too much for me to do something because I can do it and it might be okay, versus doing the thing I know is okay and to make certain that I'm certain. That to me is better to stand on solid ground than to stand on one that looks solid. And then when something happens in your life and you got this weight on you, it collapses and you realize, that's probably not what I should have been doing. That's how I see it when it comes down to the thing that the Bible says. If there's going to be a question, it's going to be a question about the thing and not about the Bible. If I'm studying it in the sense where I know it to be true.
What if I was to tell you that a lot of hypnosis is spoken in parables?
Say it one more time.
A lot of hypnosis is spoken in parables.
If you told me a lot of hypnosis was spoken in parables.
Yep. A lot of the way that you use the words is done in parables, just like the Bible. And hypnosis is not just the written word, or not just the spoken word. It is also the written word.
So compare what you're saying about parables and hypnosis and parables in the Bible.
They're parables. They're spoken in the same way.
Okay. But what's the purpose of the parables, so to speak, with hypnosis, and why did Christ speak in parables in the Bible? Because I'm almost certain they were not for the same reasons. I know why he spoke, why he did what he did in the Bible, but what about when it comes to the hypnosis? Why are those used, and what were they spoken for? Who were they for?
Who's hearing it or who's reading it? What I'm saying is simply this: is I would challenge you to say that a lot of the way that Jesus spoke in the Bible, hypnosis at its finest.
I do not agree.
Okay.
When I say I do not agree, I vehemently disagree.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So, and I don't use that often, but I disagree.
Fair enough. It is and I know we're going back to a pastor now after talking about Jesus, and they're not comparable. I get all that.
Right.
Things that I see and notice today, you take me back 7 or 8 months ago before I really started getting deep into it. I mean, I've been learning it for years,
Right.
but I really turned up the dial a lot 6 or 8 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
I see so much stuff, the way that the words are used, the way that things are said, the way that things are done,
Mm-hmm.
even the syntax of a service.
Mm-hmm.
It parallels with hypnosis to a T, completely to a T. And I'm not talking just the church that I go to,
Mm-hmm.
because I have been to several churches in my lifetime, and to a large degree, they're all the same. You know, different music, different style of preaching, all that type of stuff, without
Mm-hmm.
a doubt. To a degree, they're all the same. Just like if you go to a Catholic church, it's
Mm-hmm.
all one sequence.
Mm-hmm.
Christian church, it's all one sequence.
The thing is, that's not the way it's supposed to be, and the Bible doesn't teach that. You know, that's why I go back to the church of the Bible, and not the church in the way people do it in some of these larger assemblies. The church in the Bible isn't done in the way that you see it a lot of times in the buildings that you walk into. That's why I said that's not my standard. Even in discussing this, when you say that the way things are worded, a phrase in the church, or the way the words are used, it parallels to hypnosis. Even when you look at that, you ask yourself the question: is it paralleling to hypnosis, or are there things in hypnosis that people have created that parallel to the things that pre-existed in the church?
Oh, absolutely.
Is there things in the church that have happened? You can give. It's like this. The devil is the best at it. He gives just enough truth to keep you bound, but not quite enough to set you free. Where I can tell you enough truth to have you believing that what I'm saying is the truth because you hear the truth in it, but then have enough of the lie in there to keep you bound to something that's not quite true in and of itself. Mm-hmm. That's the nature of a lot of stuff that we see, where there's things that have been done historically and biblically that are true. And then you take things and add things to it and create a whole different idea or different context that has just enough truth in it where you can point and say, look, that's over here. But then there's a whole different element that's around it that makes it something totally different and not what's over here. But it's enough there to say that they're the same. That's the deception that the enemy himself uses in a lot of places and in a lot of churches, where there's just enough truth to keep you bound. You can say, yeah, look what he said. That's in the Bible. Yeah, it is. But there's enough other stuff sprinkled in, like a little leaven. A little leaven. What does it do? It spoils a whole batch. That's what happens with a lot of stuff.
No, and I'll give you that. You say, is it maybe hypnosis runs parallel with the Bible and things? Yeah, without a doubt. You know, I do a lot on the speaking circuit. I know a lot of high level and very well-known speakers. And Ricardo, here's the reality. I don't care who it is and what they're teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. You can go to a hypnotist that's on a speaking circuit. Everything they're teaching can be found in the Bible. Now, here's the thing. It's their spin on it. So I'm not saying that what they're saying is accurate and correct. So
there are elements that could be.
Don't misunderstand it. Okay. But I don't care if you're talking Zig Ziglar or you're talking anybody else. Everything that you're hearing at any seminar, even if it's a real estate seminar, you can find it in the Bible.
What you're saying, elements of what they're saying, not everything.
Of course.
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
Elements.
Because I say that because people that are listening, I'm a literal person. So if I hear somebody say every and all, I take that to mean every and all because that's what the words mean. And you hear me talk about the weight and value of words. So, and the reason I said that, because I want to make sure that people listening understand it. You're not saying every single thing that they say, because you can go to some conferences and hear some crap where you're like, okay, I'm heading for the exit.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. So I want to make sure they understand it. That's not what John is saying, because I've been around John long enough to know John don't listen to everything everybody says, you know, and he knows everything isn't, you know, but what he's saying is there are elements in everything that these people are saying that can be found in the Bible. Then they take their own their liberties,
their own little spin.
To add to it.
Yeah. Hey, we may pick this one up again soon, because there's so much more that we could discuss, so much deeper that we could go in with this. But But that's all the time that we have for today. So remain blessed and unstoppable until we see you again next time.
Untouchable. I hope so.